Hey guys, welcome back to another video here on FIFA 21 Career Mode. As ever, this is an early access version of the game, so not everything you see will be as it will be in the full release. Do bear that in mind, and this is of course brought to you by the EA Sports Game Changers program. The kits that you see will be last season's. The new ones aren't in this build that we're playing for early access, licensing, etc, etc. So in this one, we're going to show you the championship budgets and then budgets for Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga and La Liga. I've done one for the Premier League already as just a pure one league video. Check the channel page for that if you missed it. This one, I'm not going to spend as much time per team because I don't want this video to go on for 4 hours. So rather than do individual videos for each of the various leagues, as I have done in the past, I don't want to spam you guys with videos like that. So I'm going to do it differently this year. Bournemouth, we'll start in the Championship. Bournemouth, big budget for Bournemouth in the Championship. You're obviously going to want to get back to the Premier League as soon as possible. 30-odd million pounds for them. Barnsley, big drop to £3 million for them. You'll be probably aiming to stay in the division. Birmingham, maybe challenge for the playoffs. I don't know. Birmingham are kind of a side that do have some history in the Premier League of recent-ish time, but not a huge football club. Sorry, Birmingham fans. £4.6 million budget there. Blackburn, £7 million budget. Previous Premier League winners, albeit nearly 30 years ago now. But still, decent-sized club that should be doing better than they are. Brentford, challenged for the Premier League. Failed last season. High domestic success for them. £10 million budget. You will be without Ollie Watkins, though, who is now an Aston Villa player in real life. So bear that in mind if you take over at Brentford. Bristol City, a £9 million budget is pretty decent for Bristol City. High domestic success again. Have threatened occasionally with getting to the Premier League, the odd playoff appearance, but never actually followed it through. Cardiff, £8 million budget for them. High financial expectations as well as the high domestic success. They'll obviously be wanting, well, everybody will be wanting to get to the Premier League, but you know what I mean. They'll be one of the ones that should be challenging for it. Coventry, big Premier League history for Coventry, but in the past few years, past decade or more, they've just not been there or thereabouts. Been as low as League One and currently not at their best. £2 million budget there. You'll struggle at Coventry. Derby, challenging again to get back in the Premier League. £8 million budget there. High domestic success. Critical youth development, interestingly. So that'll be perhaps an interesting one for those of you that like to delve into the RTG style series and put emphasis on the youth development, but while starting at a higher first hurdle, so to speak, starting at Championship level rather than League 2 level. Huddersfield Town in the Premier League recently, not anymore. Do have top level credentials, albeit in the early or to mid 1920s. So personally, I'd like to see Huddersfield back in the Premier League. I've got family in Huddersfield. They're Huddersfield fans. I have a personal connection to the team and to the town, but I don't think they're going to get back to the Premier League anytime soon. Luton, Cambridge United fan, big rivals of Luton. £2 million budget there. Hope to see them relegated in real life. They narrowly avoided relegation last season, but still in the Championship for now. Middlesbrough, £8 million budget for them. Expect them to be... You always expect Middlesbrough to be challenging for promotion back to the Premier League, but they rarely have been. Millwall, £3.4 million budget for them. Again, staying in the division is probably the best thing for Millwall. Norwich, they'll want to bounce back. £20 million budget. They've lost Jamal Lewis to Newcastle. At least I think they've lost Jamal Lewis to Newcastle. I'm not sure if that's been confirmed yet or not as I record this. £20 million budget is decent, and you should be able to get yourself back up with the squad that they currently still have, although of course the transfer window is still open. Nottingham Forest, certainly a side that should be in the top flight. £15 million budget. It's been a while since they were in the top flight, but should be back up there as far as I'm concerned. Similarly with Leeds, who now are. Preston, £3.2 million. Occasionally threaten to get into the Premier League. Haven't done for a few years. In fact, went down to League One to come back up since their last proper promotion challenge. Queen's Park Rangers, £3.2 million budget. Tiny budget. There was a brief moment in time where QPR were throwing some money about. Not anymore. £4.3 million budget for Reading. Again, kind of mid-table side that will need some work to get them into the Premier League again. Rotherham, just avoid relegation for Rotherham. £1.8 million budget there. Sheffield Wednesday, another side with big history that potentially should be in the Premier League. But for now, Championship only, £4.5 million. More recently in League One than they were the Premier League. Stoke, £7.5 million budget there. Had a good Premier League run, Stoke City, but haven't looked like getting back to the Premier League since. Maybe it's your turn to take over and help them get there. Swansea, similarly, £9.2 million in the transfer budget for them. Again, had a decent run in the Premier League, but back down to the Championship, and I don't see them getting back up this year. Watford should never have been relegated in the first place with the squad that they had. £32.4 million budget, biggest budget in the league. Get yourself back up to the Premier League as soon as possible if you take over at Watford. Stay in the league at all costs for Wickham. £1.4 million budget. Tiny, but in fact, that might be the smallest budget in the league at 1.4. But let's not dwell. They're your budgets for the Championship. Let's move to France. 4.5 million for Angers. I never know how to pronounce that, unfortunately. AS Monaco, only 31.1 million. That's not a lot for a side that obviously have to compete with PSG at the top of the table. It's really not a lot. And they haven't really threatened since they lost Mbappe. Obviously, they won the league with Mbappe. Saint-Etienne, £11.2 million budget there. Bordeaux, 9.3 million. Bordeaux were a side that, when I was growing up, were always pretty decent, but they just haven't been of recent times, unfortunately for them. Dijon, tiny club, tiny budget, try and stay in the league. Lorient, tiny club, tiny budget, try and stay in the bloody league. Metz, £5.2 million budget there. Up and down in recent years, Metz, try and stay in the division with them if you can. FC Nantes, slightly bigger budget there. Twice the size of a number of the smaller clubs that we've seen so far. Should be staying in the division. Lille won the league not that long ago, within the last 10 years. So you'd want a challenge. You want a challenge for European spots at the very least. There you go, 2011. 2011. I don't know why I said it like that. 2011. Last time they won the league. And actually, they did a cup double as well, so fair play to them. £12.6 million the budget at Lille. Montpellier, they won the league in 11-12, the year after Lille did. Montpellier, I think... No, I'm wrong there. Aubameyang was at Saint-Etienne, wasn't he? Not Montpellier. Apologies. Or was he? Oh, God, I'm going to have to check now for my own. I know it was at Saint-Etienne. Was he at Montpellier as well? No, it was Giroud at Montpellier. Oh, I'm getting all sorts of former French people run through my mind. It was Olivier Giroud that was at Montpellier. I knew someone in the Premier League that was a decent striker had been at Montpellier the year they won the league. Aubameyang at Saint-Etienne. Montpellier was Olivier Giroud. Nîmes Olympique, tiny club, tiny budget. Try and get yourself towards the top half, I guess. Nice, side that have some good players. Nearly £10 million in budget. It's not much though, is it really? To be competing at the European stage or trying to get into the Europa League level. It's not a good budget. Lyon, £40 million. You might not have Memphis Depay though by the time this... Even by the time this video comes out, let alone by the end of the transfer window. Might be losing Memphis Depay, but a number of other good players there. Critical youth development expectation at Lyon, and obviously high domestic success expected of you. Similarly at Marseille, high domestic success, £12.5 million. Would have expected a bigger budget at Marseille, to be honest. Would have expected a bigger budget, but still a pretty decent squad to build with. Paris Saint-Germain, oh, there's a budget, £120 million. 4 times bigger or 3 times bigger than any other budget in the entire league. Critical, critical, critical. There's a surprise. Win everything. And for the love of God, please, someone win the Champions League with Paris Saint-Germain. Lens, critical domestic success for them. Presumably to try and stay in the league at all costs. £7 million budget there. Rennes, £10.9 million budget. That's quite a decent budget, actually, for Stade Rennais. I'm not sure who their standout players are, though, off the top of my head. I apologise. Stade Brestois, £5.2 million budget there. Stade de Reims, £6.2 million budget there. And Strasbourg, who were a side that used to threaten around the European scene in the UEFA Cup days. I remember Liverpool playing Strasbourg in real life a few years... Well, I say a few years ago. It's probably more than 20 years ago now. I am old. £7.2 million budget for Strasbourg. So, moving to Germany. FC Köln! The player that we did a series with last season on FIFA 20, a £13.2 million budget for them, having stayed up and survived the relegation fight that they were in. FSV Mainz, £10.6 million budget for them. Bielefeld, good luck staying in the division, £5.7 million budget. Poor squad. It will be a challenge. Borussia Dortmund, £54 million budget there. No Ashraf Hakimi this season, of course, but you do have Jude Bellingham. So, swings and roundabouts. Critical domestic, high continental, critical brand exposure, high youth development, all as you would expect at Borussia Dortmund. That's not a massive budget. But you do have Erling Braut Haaland now, so bang the goals in with him. Augsburg, £9.3 million budget. Probably going to want us to stay in the division to start and then build from there. FC Bayern München, £108 million budget. Critical. Medium youth development. I would have expected that to be higher at Bayern, to be honest, but biggest budget in the league for obvious reasons. Well, actually, is it? I don't know what Leipzig's budget's going to be. FC Schalke 04, £20 million budget there. Critical financial, critical youth development. Underperforming of late. Schalke need to do better. Frankfurt, overperforming of late. Need to keep that up. £18.3 million budget at Frankfurt. Hertha Berlin with a £64 million budget. Unexpected. Have they had a takeover? I don't know, but that's a big budget for Hertha Berlin. Enjoy that, lads. £43 million budget at Leverkusen with no Kai Havertz, of course. Domestic success high, medium continental and brand exposure and high youth development as well. Of course, in recent times, also lost Julian Brandt to Dortmund, and was Torgan Hazard? No, Torgan Hazard, was he Mönchengladbach? Or was he Lever? I think it was Mönchengladbach, wasn't he, actually, thinking about it? Yes, Borussia Mönchengladbach, never mind. Ignore me. Switch tabs back, there we go. Borussia Mönchengladbach. £22.7 million budget for them. High domestic success expected, high financial, but that's actually quite high across the board. You need to kind of focus everywhere. That's going to be quite difficult, actually, at Borussia Mönchengladbach. Leipzig, only a £50 million budget. Would have expected slightly higher there, especially having got some money for Timo Werner, who, of course, you will now not have at Leipzig. But do still have Yusuf Paulsen, so there is still some striking talent at the club. Domestic and continental success, both high. Youth development, high as well. Freiburg, £13 million budget there. Critical youth development, so perhaps a long-term road to glory option there. £31 million for Hoffenheim. Had a couple of seasons where they were pretty decent. Obviously, that's where Liverpool got Bobby Firmino from. But need to do better than they have done recently. Union Berlin stay in the division. £8.5 million budget there. Stuttgart, a side with some history, although not stereotypically, traditionally the most popular of sides in Germany as far as I'm aware. £18 million budget for them there. Wolfsburg, £35 million budget there. Decent budget. Edin Dzeko ran the Bundesliga for Wolfsburg when he was there. You might need someone of his capabilities at that time again to challenge at the top of the league. Werder Bremen, an £11 million budget. Mid-table side, really. Moving from Germany to Italy, Atalanta. Challenging in the Champions League again this season. £25.2 million budget there. Papu Gomez isn't getting any younger, but he's still going to be pretty decent first season. Critical youth development there. Benevento, stay in the league. £5 million budget. Bologna, £13.4 million. Don't know much about Bologna, to be honest, so I can't really tell you much at all. Borgo Calcio. I'll be honest, I have no idea who Borgo Calcio are. Borgo Calcio. Genuinely had no idea that they were a club. Supposedly, judging by this, not licensed. And unless I'm mistaken, not in Serie A? It says they finished it, yeah, second Divisione B. I don't know who Borgo Calcio are. Maybe it's another side that isn't genuinely, you'll have to let me know, because I have no idea who Borgo Calcio are. Cagliari, £9.1 million budget for them. I'm curious about that, because I hadn't heard anything about any other Serie A sides being unlicensed other than Juventus and Roma. Crotone, £4.2 million budget, stay in the league. Fiorentina, £22.8 million budget. I always love their home kit. It looks great. And Gabriel Batistuta was an absolute hero for them back in the day. Unfortunately, he is a legend on PES this year. So you can't get Batistuta in FIFA as an icon on FUT, unfortunately. Genoa, £7.7 million budget for them. Hellas Verona, one of the two, 9.3. Inter, £71 million budget for Internazionale Milano. Critical domestic success, critical brand exposure, high continental success. They've signed some good players in recent times, so make sure you win as much as possible at Inter. They came close to winning Serie A last season, of course. Lazio, £30 million budget. Need to do better than they have been recently. If you take them over, do better, please. AC Milan, Critical brand exposure, high continental and domestic success. A couple of interesting signings for them in the transfer window so far. Sandro Tonali, most notably, recently as well. So, building for the future, AC Milan. Napoli, £42.1 million budget. Challenged for the title a couple of years ago. Weren't able to do it. And lost a couple of key players. Critical domestic success, high continental and brand exposure. Parma, 10.3. Stay in the league and build from there, I think. Piemonte Calcio, Juventus will have nearly £100 million to spend. Critical everywhere, as you would imagine, with regards to on-field and brand exposure critical as well. Don't need to worry about money and maybe give some thought to the youth, but not a necessity. Roma. Don't know what they're going to look like in the full game. The kits obviously won't both be white, so it's a shame that they've lost the licensing for Roma, but it is what it is. Small battles that Pez win and will never win the war. Domestic success, continental success and brand exposure all at high. Medium financial for Roma. Sampdoria, £11 million there or thereabouts. Sassuolo, £12 million there or thereabouts. And Torino, still got Belotti. As far as I'm aware, Belotti is still at... Oh, I'm going to have to double check that now. I'm doing a lot of Googling here, aren't I? Belotti is still at Torino for the time being. Although, if he gets poached by someone, don't be surprised. For the time being, you'll still have him as your main striker. Udinese, £7.7 million budget. A couple of players have come through Udinese over their careers, of course, in the early stages, like Alexis Sanchez, etc. But Udinese never really a side that I consider challenging for European spots. Just my own personal opinion, obviously. And then we'll show you Spain as well. Espanol. Athletic de Bilbao will have a £16.6 million budget. It's a sad time. Aritz Adariz has announced his retirement from the game. He will no longer be a Bilbao player, which is a shame. If you do take over at Bilbao, try and set yourself a challenge and only sign players from the Basque region of Spain and France, like they do in real life. Critical youth development, because it's not like there's a lot of players to choose from the Basque region. So they have to kind of build from within. Atletico De Madrid, £61.7 million. Critical domestic, continental and brand exposure. Challenge for the title and European success. Osasuna, £4.3 million. Stay in the league. Similarly, Leganés with their £4.1 million. And Deportivo Alaves as well at £3.9. Barcelona, £170 million budget. Critical. You've still got Messi for another year. So congratulations. You might want to think about replacing him sooner rather than later, though, and you've got the budget to do so. Getafe, the third side in Madrid, £7.4 million budget for them. Granada Sport... is Granada Real Sporting? No, it's Gijón, isn't it? Granada, £6.8 million budget, just stay in the league. Levante, the second side in Valencia, £8.3 million for them. Valladolid, I think they're in Madrid as well. Or is it Vallecano? I think it's Vallecano, actually. £2.7 million for Valladolid. Celta de Vigo, £10.5 million for them. Been punching above their weight for a couple of seasons. Or they did a few years ago. I'm not sure if they did last season. I haven't checked the league table. But a side that you could realistically probably challenge for Europa League football with inside a couple of seasons. Espanol, second side in Barcelona, of course, £5.4 million, tiny budget. Mallorca, even smaller, £2.5 million budget. Not bad for a holiday, though. Real Betis, £14.4 million there. Real Madrid, £170 million for them, too. Not to be outdone by Barcelona. They'll have a pink away kit next season, as will Barca. Critical. Win everything. Real Sociedad, 14.1. Eibar, I'm not sure which way around you pronounce it. £5.8 million budget for them. And Sevilla, of course, £31 million budget for them. And, well, if you don't win the Europa League, then you're not the right man for Sevilla. Valencia, £60 million budget, although they have recently been a bit of a selling club because of financial issues. So if that's reflected in the game at full launch, don't expect a big budget. Although, because they are a big team, and FIFA doesn't necessarily reflect real life sometimes, or the majority of the time, expect a big budget. But you will have to compete across the board. Villarreal, £30 million budget for them. Well, it's probably a long time ago now, actually, since they were in the Champions League under Manuel Pellegrini. Four-star team, £30 million budget. Maybe bring Santi back again. Oh no, he's probably not in the game because he's gone. Oh, I'm not sure. Never mind. Villarreal, decent side. I always like their full yellow home kit as well, actually. And that sums up the other leagues. The other leagues from the other main leagues from FIFA 21 Career Mode. As ever, early versions, so the numbers you see may change. Obviously, the kits will change, and the grounds, there'll be more grounds added in, Ellen Road, etc., for next season or for full launch. So do bear that in mind. But for now, that's what those budgets are. Check the channel page for anything you haven't seen so far. Premier League budgets, Career Mode mechanic videos for training, for development plans, for player positioning, etc. But for now, that's all for me for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.